Next halacha, halacha daled, number 4, in chapter 7. Al yedame adam bal teshuvah, shehu meruchak mimalat hatzadikim. Don't think, if you are a Baal Teshuvah, don't think or have in your mind that you are light years away from the tzaddikim, or from a righteous person. Because many times a person says, all my life I was sinning, I have so many sins. Now, okay, for the last 2-3 years I started doing teshuvah. Big deal. So for 3 years I'm doing teshuvah, 50 years I've sinned. And I'm so horrible and I have so many sins on my record. I'll never be able to fix it. I'm a lost case. I'll never be able to find all the people I owe money and that I hurt them. And there's no hope for me. I'm light years away from a tzaddik, from a righteous person. And why would he say that? Mipnei ha'avonot v'achataot she'asa. Because of all the sins and the bad things that person did, he thinks, I'll never be able to do teshuvah. En hadavar ken. This is not correct. Ela ahuv v'nechmad hu lifnei haboreh. Ke'ilu lo chata ma'olam. He's loved by the master of the universe, and the Hashem looks at him in such a great light, like as if he never sinned forever. The Kadosh Baruch Hu loves Baalei Teshuvah. And even if a person is 60 years old and all his life sinned, and he says, how am I going to do teshuvah for 60 years? What, I'm now putting a tefillin and eating kosher, that's going to fix what I did? So he says, don't think that, because when a person decides to change his way, and he decides to do teshuvah, on that moment the Kadosh Baruch Hu already puts him in some type of a buffer zone, and he says, I know you have 60 years yet record of bad things, and you only started doing teshuvah. But because your teshuvah is real, because I see in your heart that you really want to do teshuvah, and I see that your actions are real, then the Kadosh Baruch Hu puts him in some type of a buffer zone and says, take your time to do teshuvah. I mean, don't take too long, but I know it will take you a few years. In the meantime, the Kadosh Baruch Hu sees him as if he didn't have sins. And the Kadosh Baruch Hu loves that person. It doesn't mean the sins are erased, but it doesn't mean that now you're doomed and your actions are worthless. More than that, velo od ela shescharo harbe. Not only that the Kadosh Baruch Hu accepts your teshuvah and welcomes you and loves you and sees you in a great light, and he says, okay, I know it will take you 10 years, 5 years, 20 years to do teshuvah, depending on you, and depending how much you press on the gas. But nevertheless, your reward is great. Sharei ta'am ta'am achet uperash mimeno. Why is your reward so great? Because you tasted the taste of sin for many times and you decided to stop. V'kavash yitro, and you're able to conquer your desire. That's a very high level, even if you did it for 50, 60 years. Our sages have said, Amru Chachamim, Makom sheba'alei teshuvah omdim en tzadikim gemurim yecholim la'amod bo. In a place where a Baal Teshuvah stands, a complete tzaddik cannot stand there. This is said in the Talmud, in Tractate Brachot, page 34, if you want to see inside. But in a place where a Baal Teshuvah stands, a complete tzaddik cannot stand. What is the meaning to that? Ma'alatam gdola mima'alat elo. The level, the virtue of the Baal Teshuvah is greater than the tzaddik. Why? Because the tzaddik never made any sins. So he didn't taste the sin. He was born in Bnei Brak, in Mea Shearim, Borough Park, Monsey. Never tasted it, never sinned. He doesn't know what it means to sin. But the other one, the Baal Teshuvah, tasted it and decided not to do it. So their level was much, much greater. Mipnei shehem kovshim mitzram yoter mehem. Why? Because they have to conquer their desire on a daily basis. For that, I'm going to add a quick story that will emphasize what he's saying here. There was once a king, and he decided that he needs to hire the next one who's going to take over. He didn't have a son. He said, I have to find the right man that will take over the kingdom. So they sent the message out. They started recruiting people. Thousands of people came to apply. And from tens of thousands, they narrowed it down to 1,000. They gave them all sorts of tests, all sorts of things to do to see who's right to be the right person. From 1,000, they narrowed it down to 100, from 100 to 50, to 50 to 10. Finally, after weeks of hard examinations and testing and observing, they narrowed it down to 3 people that are potential to take over. And now they didn't know, okay, what's the last thing what we can do? How can we test them to see who's the right person? So they went to the king and said, okay, we narrowed it from 10,000 potential people to 3. We have the 3 most potential individuals. What should we do now? So the king says, okay, we're going to put them through a test. We're going to lock them in a room for 1 day. And in this room, each and every one of them is going to get a special bottle of wine. The wine that belongs to the king. And the one that will not going to drink from the wine and will be able to hold for 24 hours, he will be the next one. Now, this is something that we can relate with, because, okay, big deal, the wine of the king. So I would now add on the story and say it's almost like putting a heroin addict in a room and heroin on the table and telling him, don't touch it. The desire is almost unbelievable about this wine. Okay, and of course it's a parable, so flow with me. Don't start being, what's the big deal with the wine? Okay, so they lock them all in the room with the bottle of wine, and they wait 24 hours. Comes 24 hours, everybody comes to see what's going to happen. All the media is there, CNN, Fox, NBC, they're all there, cameras are rating, drum roll. Now what's going to happen? Everybody's all excited. They open the first room, and they see the guy sitting like this on the bed. The bottle is completely sealed, didn't touch the bottle. Everybody's like, wow, he must be the next one. He might be the next king. Everybody's going crazy. They open the next room and see the guy on the floor, drunk. The whole bottle is completely empty. The guy's a lush. They're saying, okay, that one didn't make it. Now, what's going to be now with the third room? Everybody's biting their nails. Drum roll, their cameras are focused. What's going to happen? They open the door. They see the guy sitting on the bed like this. The bottle is open, and this much is missing from the bottle. Everybody thinks he's going to be the failure. The king walks through and says, that's the guy I want. He's going to be the next one. No telling, yeah, but Your Highness, you said that the one who's not going to drink from the wine is going to take the number one. He's going to be the one who takes over. He says, you're right. But you know what, with this guy, he opened it. He tasted it. And then for 24 hours, he didn't touch it. Knowing the taste of the wine, and he was able to hold himself. That's the kind of man that I want. So the Kadosh Baruch Hu says the exact same thing. Don't open the wine ever. Okay, so you don't know how it tastes. So that's a tzaddik, or a person who's born in a cocoon, in a world of Torah, never tasted a sin in his life. But a person that opened the bottle, tasted it, now he knows the taste of it, of the sin, and then for the rest of his life he doesn't touch it. That's a much, much greater level, and therefore the Kadosh Baruch Hu has greater respect, and he sees the Balei Teshuvah in a greater light, because on a daily basis you have to fight your desire. You know what it is to eat food that tastes a certain way. You know what it is to be with a woman in a forbidden way. You know how it tastes to cheat and lie, and then you hold yourself. That's a much, much greater than just not knowing and not touching. Therefore, our sages have said, in the place where a Baal Teshuvah stands, a complete tzaddik cannot stand. Why? Because all of his life he's fighting his desire, and here and there he might fail. But the main action is that he's fighting the desire, and therefore Baal Teshuvah is a very great level. So don't discount your actions, and don't discount your difficulties, and don't discount all the hardship that you go through. And Baal Teshuvah is a very, very high level, and Hashem loves the Baalei Teshuvah. So don't think that you messed something up, or don't think that you're far away from tzaddikim and you're light years away from them. In many cases, you are way ahead of many, many others, because the Kadosh Baruch Hu is not counting victories. The Kadosh Baruch Hu is looking at the effort. A lot of people said, if I didn't win the battle, then I lost the battle. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm not looking for victories. I'm looking for a fight. I want to see the effort. That's what counts, not how many times you won or how many times you failed. is how many times you didn't give up, is how many times you kept on fighting, how many times you're saying, no, I will be able to do it at some point. And that's what Hashem is looking for, and therefore Baalei Teshuvah are considered in a very high level. Bezrat Hashem should be a will that we also will end up being a Baal Teshuvah and die and leave this world with Teshuvah in our hand.